Whoa. Oh my God, this is not good. Not good, guys. Really bad. Hey, can you position the streaming camera?
Hey, stay on it, stay on it. Not good, not good.
Chris, get ready. Hold on.
Go, 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 go. No, I got it.
Hold on.
Stop.
Here you go.
Don't move.
Go.
Oh,
don't move.
Here, I got you.
Hey, let's get on that road. Oh, wait, is that a road that goes east? Chris?
I don't know, bro. I don't have a map.
I need to get on it. Okay. Violent tornado. Let's intercept. Let's go forward. It's moving southeast. Moving southeast. Good morning, everybody. Look at that monster system that's going to be diving south across the western U.S. and then ejecting across the southern plains and portions of the Mid-South. Looks like the severe weather is going to be Wednesday and Thursday of next week, beginning first across North Texas, eastern Oklahoma, Wednesday night, and then spreading east across the Mid-South, where it looks like a tornado outbreak appears very possible Wednesday into Thursday. This is the last night's European model showing that bowling ball of a system diving all the way south into northern Mexico. That's important because it's going to pick up that elevated mixed layer, dry air just above the ground, and then it's going to eject that across the moisture across the Mid-South. A monster low-level jet is going to fire up out ahead of this system as well. And all of this is fueled by this big-time surface low that's going to strengthen and then meander up toward the western Aleutian Islands, deeping down to about 950 millibars. That system is going to have a lot of warm advection off to its east. That's going to excite a big-time ridge across the northeastern Pacific, and that's going to allow that bowling ball of a storm system out ahead of the main low over the Aleutians to dive south across the western U.S. all the way into northern Mexico before ejecting across the southeastern Great Plains and across the Mid-South. This is a classic pattern that we saw in 2011 during that year 2 La Nina as well, where you also had a cold PDO horseshoe across the northeastern Pacific. You had these systems that would rapidly deepen as they dive south across the western U.S. Here is that storm system diving south across the Pacific Northwest. And it is a two-pronged ejection, but it's that lead surface low, that lead vortex that lifts up toward the Great Lakes that's going to cause this severe weather, and it does lift up toward the Great Lakes like that because of a strong subtropical ridge. It's going to be off the southeastern U.S. That's also been the process that has helped to maintain that deep moisture over the Gulf of Mexico during the fall and through the winter for those significant severe weather events. And we're going to drill down a little bit deeper on this setup, break down the timing as well. But it is a day 6 and day 7 event. So this is on Wednesday. The Storm Prediction Center already has that 15% risk out. That includes almost to Oklahoma City, down through the Dallas area and areas off to the east, and eventually spreading across Arkansas and Louisiana during the overnight hours. That's your threat on Wednesday. This is the threat on Thursday, the day after, where an even more substantial severe weather event is expected, centered over the central and lower Mississippi River Valley, those normal areas that often get these big Dixie Alley tornado outbreaks, central U.S. This is going to be next Thursday when that system ejects. And there is remarkable model agreement as well for this trough ejection between the two different models, between the GFS model and the European model, and amongst the individual ensemble members. With that two-pronged trough ejection, it's not going to be that similar to those events like December 10 and 11 and during October, where you had a cutoff low that would stall off of Baja, and then the system would come in and pick it up and then eject that storm system. This one's a much more clean ejection. You have that main bowling ball of a trough diving into northern Mexico, and then a nice clean ejection off to the northeast, dependent on that anticyclone, the ridge off the southeastern U.S. down to the south of the Gulf of Mexico. So it is a relatively consistent and easy to predict pattern this far in advance, and that is why we already have the Storm Prediction Center risk areas, those 15% risk areas already in place. And here is that surface low ejection across. This is a Colorado low, even though it is going to develop over southeastern Colorado down into the Panhandle region. There is that surface low ejecting. Look at that blocking high as well downstream over the northern Atlantic. Definitely the buckling of this jet being fueled by that negative NAO, basically like a dam on the jet stream across the North Atlantic, causing a buckling of the jet, and that's exactly what's going to happen with the 500 millibar pattern. This is 500 millibar vorticity, showing that bowling ball diving south to northern Baja, drifting across northern Mexico before ejecting up toward the Great Lakes. And it's that pivot motion also that helps to accelerate a very strong low-level jet out in advance of this storm system. Big dew points are going to be pumped northward out of the Gulf of Mexico by this pattern. Here is the European dew points, surface dew points. And watch the Gulf of Mexico get invigorated by that slug of 70s dew points off the Caribbean, maintained by that subtropical high out there. That is basically the primer for the Gulf of Mexico that allows it to recharge so quickly during these winter outbreaks and during the fall, and as we're heading into the late winter, into the early spring as well. Look at that Gulf of Mexico moisture recharge. Bam! Suddenly you get those 70s dew points. That's what's going to fuel this likely tornado outbreak Wednesday into Thursday. And now we're going to break down the European solution. Then we'll look at the individual models. This is on Wednesday afternoon at 21Z. And some other good news with this storm system is it's going to bring some much needed rainfall across the southern plains. Joel's dad, Jimmy Taylor, I was texting with him this morning. Their ranch is out near Elk City, near the Cheyenne area, western Oklahoma, and it's incredibly dry out there. Wildfire danger is quite high as well. But this storm system is going to bring much needed moisture to the southern plains, probably over an inch of liquid equivalent precipitation, and some of that also could be some wraparound in the form of snow. But here's your Colorado low. They call it a Colorado low because Lee cyclogenesis happens to the east of the Colorado Rockies, or even the New Mexico Rockies as well. Usually that Lee cyclogenesis will happen anywhere. This type of a bomb cyclone, this type of a bowling ball, though, diving all the way south into northern Mexico, favors that cyclogenesis to happen over the southern high plains a little bit further south, but it quickly deepens into a 996 surface low near the Dodge City area by Wednesday afternoon. It's going to meander a little bit until that surface low gets organized, coming out a little further south. But this is going to be the severe weather event on Wednesday evening. And Wednesday night, it especially blows up here across North Texas to the west of the DFW area. I do think that Wednesday is going to be more of a nocturnal event moving across southeastern Oklahoma. There's your surface low finally really deepening through Oklahoma. Your wraparound starting to set up on the backside as that Arctic front surges out to the south. Could bring a snowstorm across the southern high plains. Almost a certainty out there. And my Colorado friends, I am going to cover the latest snow maps too, a little bit further north, closer to the I-70 corridor. Definitely a further south surface low track with this system. So I would think that the heaviest accumulations are going to be focused a little bit further south of the I-70 corridor, but we'll take a look at that in detail. This is on Thursday, midday, wraparound hammering western Oklahoma. So a lot of the precipitation that you're going to get across western Oklahoma is even going to be in the form of snow on the backside of this system. That's Thursday afternoon into evening when that happens. And then the severe weather event pushes off across portions of the Mid-South on Thursday. Probably will be tornadoes Wednesday night into Thursday morning as that warm front begins to lift off to the north. Mid to upper 60s dew points and a reservoir of 70s dew points down into the northern Gulf of Mexico. Let me pump this just a little bit further north so that you can see those 70s dew points just sitting down there in the Gulf. That's really going to set up Thursday's severe weather event, and usually the global models, the European model and the GFS, will underdo dew points by a couple of degrees. And so as we get closer to this event on Thursday, I do expect those dew points to be even higher, probably close to 70 when it's all said and done. There's the GFS solution from last night, showing you those dew points. Excited for the new European model, the 12Z model, to come out later on today. The GFS is going to be coming out in a couple hours as well. And it's all about this low-level jet. That's what really pumps some moisture northward. And look at that 70-knot low-level jet that's setting up on Wednesday, just in time for peak heating across portions of the Mid-South. But those storms are going to develop potentially as early as Wednesday evening. This is at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, with the western edge of that low-level jet axis lined up right along the I-35 corridor, Oklahoma City area, down toward Dallas. Storms are going to initiate along that boundary and then move in to that very strong wind shear fueled by that low-level jet. We could look at the surface-based instability as well. Underdoing that surface-based instability a bit, but it is going to be likely an overnight event. It's Thursday. Let's go to Wednesday evening. Thursday evening, excuse me. Wow. Interestingly, as usual, the GFS is really underdoing the surface-based instability with this storm. This far in advance, it's often not even worth looking at some of those severe weather parameters. You want to look more at just the shape of that trough ejection. And then there's the late arrival of those dew points, according at least to the European model. I think as we're getting closer to this event, though, we're definitely going to see the dew points be a little bit increased as you get closer to the event. But it does look like a Wednesday night type of a severe weather event. Storms initiating along the western edge of that dew point gradient. There's the dry line exiting the Panhandle region, moving through northwest Texas late night. But I don't think the dry line is going to be a player for this. I saw a post by the National Weather Service out of the Texas Panhandle, out of Lubbock, talking about the dry line. It's just a little bit too early to get those dry lines to convect along the high plains. It is winter still. But as we're getting a little bit closer to late March into April, then I think that this type of a trough ejection is going to be very active further northwest across the southern plains as well. But this is about midnight, Wednesday night, the middle of the night. You start to get that influx of moisture, mid-60s dew points coming on shore near Houston. And I think as we get closer to this event, you get into the NAM range, especially the convective allowing models, you're going to see these dew points jump up as they often do. But by midnight, you're going to see a nocturnal development of those storms along a dry line, or basically a front. Definitely westerlies back behind it, behaving similar to a dry line. The main front is back behind across the northern high plain, across the southern high plains, diving south into the Panhandle region. So we'll call that a dry line. Double-digit drop in dew points from the 50s down into the 40s. Definitely would classify that as a dry line. It's a little bit diffuse in the global models. It'll certainly tighten up, but that's going to be the focus for nocturnal initiation of storms along that front/dry line across North Texas, moving into Central Texas to the west of Dallas. And then as you go into the morning hours, that blob of convection pushes off to the east, and that's also going to be very strongly sheared. You're going to have a 70-knot low-level jet from East Texas, Houston area, dominating the state of Louisiana into southern Arkansas. And there's likely going to be tornado warnings when we wake up the morning of Thursday. And then that by midday, that front pushes all the way to the Mississippi River. Big low-level jet off to the east as well. That is likely going to proliferate this severe weather. You don't want to get too focused on the exact location of the severe weather yet. I'm just showing you this one operational run of the 0Z European model last night. But it's likely going to change as we get closer to the event. Realizing, though, that this isn't really a tandem trough ejection by the fact that it's picking up a closed low that's already there off Baja and then ejecting it off the front. This is a cleaner trough ejection. Bowling ball diving south across the western U.S. into northern Mexico. Then it does the pivot up toward the Great Lakes. That pivot's key to exciting a big low-level jet like this. And this is a very strong low-level jet. You're going to have moisture as well, surface-based instability associated with this. There are your dew points lifting all the way up to near the Missouri Boot Heel region, mid to upper 60s dew points. And then it spreads off to the east across portions of central Kentucky, central Tennessee, and across a large swath of the Mid-South, Mississippi, Alabama. But realize that this is just one trough ejection, or one model. We could also look at the ensembles as well, but those are in quite strong agreement on this trough ejection. A lot of deep layer shear. There's your lobe of vorticity lifting up toward the southern Great Lakes. And by 0Z Thursday, that low-level jet pushes east through central Kentucky, central Tennessee. Pretty strong wind shear extends all the way down south through the entire state of Alabama as well. So this is looking like a pretty substantial severe weather event. Snow on the backside as well. Thursday evening, that line of severe storms looks to be maximized over Kentucky into central Tennessee, down through Alabama as well. Likely will be prefrontal confluence lines of convection. There's your 991 surface low up into central Illinois. And the GFS is a little bit more progressive with that surface low, lifting it up into southern lower Michigan, bringing that line of convection into eastern Tennessee, northern Georgia, central Alabama. So there are some subtle differences in timing between the 0Z GFS and the 0Z European model. These long-range models, the GFS seems a lot more noisy run-to-run, whereas the European model is generally more consistent. And it is a clean trough ejection, so I don't expect a ton of model uncertainty as we're leading up into the mid-range, leading up to this event. It is a cleaner trough ejection, should be subject to a little bit more accuracy and consistency amongst the global models. But that trough lifts off to the north across the southern plains. I do want to look at some snow maps as well. I'm going to be covering the severe weather portion of the storm, and look at that next lobe of vorticity diving off to the south in the very long range. I think we're setting ourselves up for an active late February into March. Starting to get way too far out there. This is the GFS model to really see exactly how this trough's going to behave. But overall, that should favor deep moisture in the Gulf of Mexico. There's your 70s dew point sitting down there. Quick recovery of the Gulf of Mexico because of how strong that ridge is off the southeastern U.S. and into the subtropics, kind of maintaining a little bit of southerly flow through the Caribbean, maintaining that reservoir of those deeper dew points that are able to populate the Gulf of Mexico. But let's take a look at where the greatest snow is going to happen. And I know some of these other models were showing that bomb cyclone ejection out of Colorado, and we get all excited about it. But boy, it looks like the further south track of this bowling ball diving into northern Baja, into northern Mexico, is a little bit too far south to get the big upslope snow, to get that Lee cyclogenesis up into Colorado a bit further north so that you can maintain that big upslope for a longer time period over the foothills. In this case, the surface low gets going a little bit further southeast as well. So, and you're also not going to get the system to close off over the Four Corners, over the Mountain West, which would be ideal to maintain a much longer duration upslope event. But still, it has some decent snowfall there in the foothills, possibly approaching a foot up near Evergreen, up to the west of Golden, up to the west of Boulder as well. Maybe including Boulder could get some decent snow. Again, that is just the GFS, which is a little bit more progressive. The European model, though, just shows several inches to a foot up there. Not that big 2-foot type of a snow event. The European model, though, does paint a nice swath of snow, though, across western Oklahoma. And that's where a lot of that precipitation comes from, that liquid equivalent precipitation. But it looks like a decent upslope event, several inches to a foot. Probably will be a lot stronger across the southern Rockies of the Colorado, down into southern Colorado to the west of Trinidad, out near La Veta Pass. Could be a winner of this one. The Sangre de Cristos as well across northern New Mexico, northeastern New Mexico could be a winner for a slightly more prolonged and more favorable upslope into the southern foothills. But the models are still painting a decent swath of snow. No more bomb cyclone, though, as definitely the surface low gets going a little bit later and then lifts up toward the Great Lakes. A nice swath of several inches of snow. The European model is maximizing that over northwestern Oklahoma, but the GFS is a bit more progressive, not as deep early on, and that swath is further north across central Kansas, eastern Iowa, southern Wisconsin as well. I know my good buddy Isaac Slucci up there in Madison is excited about this snow event. My Uncle Bruce across northern lower Michigan could get a nice swath of snow. Let's see what the European... Still some big differences between the different snow maps, but both models are showing northern Michigan getting hammered by this storm with that surface low moving through southern lower Michigan Definitely could be a decent swath of snow across central, northern, lower Michigan. GFS shows it north of Grand Rapids, European model, just north of Grand Rapids. In fact, both models show that stripe just to the north of GR. Madison could get lit up by this one as well, eastern Iowa. So there definitely is going to be a snow component on the northwest side of the system, but I'm going to be focusing in on the severe weather, southeastern Great Plains, Wednesday night. Thursday, though, looks like the big event. That's going to be across central and lower Mississippi River Valley. Basically, southern Illinois, western Kentucky, Missouri Boot Heel, down south through eastern Louisiana as well. But that is a textbook trough ejection for severe weather. If this was going to be happening during March or April, we'd be talking about a major 2-day tornado outbreak Wednesday into Thursday, Great Plains into the Mid-South. This one, though, slightly late arrival of that moisture is going to be favoring more of a nocturnal event Wednesday night across North Texas, central Oklahoma, moving into southeastern Oklahoma, moving through eastern Texas, through Arkansas, Louisiana during the overnight hours on Wednesday. I do think it's going to be a tornado outbreak. Anytime you get these big dynamic, large-scale trough ejections like this, they're going to pull up sufficient moisture. You're going to have very strong low-level wind shear as well beneath that 70-knot low-level jet, fueled by that 70-knot low-level jet out ahead of it. So I just think that it's almost a certainty that you're going to get a tornado outbreak, which means just 6 or more tornadoes across a region during about a 12-hour period, and that will give you a low-end tornado outbreak. I do think, though, Thursday looks like it's going to be a more substantial tornado outbreak than that, with such a large-scale trough ejection and a little bit more time for that moisture to arrive. So there's the GFS. Midnight Wednesday, showing you that very compact lead Fort Max. Moving into the Texas Panhandle. Belt a strong flow, a ski jump configuration punching in to Texas. We go over to the European. It's more of an open wave by this time over eastern New Mexico, but higher amplitude. Definitely digging further south into northern Mexico. That deepening certainly helped by this ribbon of flow along the base of that trough. And then it closes off over the Texas Panhandle by Thursday morning. There's the GFS, a little bit further north, a little stronger and more closed off upon ejection. But those are the differences. The European model, a little bit slower, a little bit higher amplitude with that 500 millibar low. A lot higher amplitude, digging south into central Texas. So these differences are going to continue between the GFS and the European model, but still should lead to a nocturnal severe weather event Wednesday night, and then a more large-scale severe weather outbreak on Thursday across portions of the Mid-South with that extra 12 hours of low-level jet pumping moisture off the Gulf of Mexico. And then it rockets off to the Great Lakes, shears out, and then your kicker system back behind. The question will be if, that's going to shear out as well. Another system across the Pacific Northwest. So it's all about that system, that strong low that lifts northeast over the Aleutian Islands. That's going to initiate a ridge over the northeastern Pacific, and then that vortex is going to ride the wave down to the south across the western U.S., eventually into northern Mexico, and then eject toward the Great Lakes. Absolutely textbook. Pretty intense low there in the west Aleutians. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this weather report. Thank you to Facebook supporters as well for making these live briefings possible and our live storm chasing possible. I'm going to be doing a live Q&A tomorrow on this as well. We'll do a live detailed forecast discussion. I'd like to get a little bit more model data within range before we do that live Q&A. Ideally, I'd like to do it within the range of the NAM, and especially those convective allowing models. We're just going to have to do a lot of live private forecast discussions leading up to this event. And that's what I'm going to be doing during the spring of 2022, is also doing very in-depth private forecast discussions exclusively for Facebook supporters as well. So we could do a Q&A, we can talk about the models, we could talk about the meteorology. So that is my plan for the live Q&As as we go through severe weather season 2022. I am going to be deploying our science mission, our gravity wave sensors out there. The gravitrons I am going to try to deploy in a triangle pattern out ahead of these tornadoes. So hopefully we could see some of that gravity wave action propagating through the network, the triangle network of the gravitrons. So there's the Storm Prediction Center day one, 15% painted across that region, likely more of a nocturnal setup out there. But then you look at the day two Storm Prediction Center, more expansive. And I do expect Thursday to potentially be the more substantial severe weather events of the two. Another 12 hours of that moisture feed off the Gulf of Mexico. System ejects. Big low-level jet, 70-plus knot low-level jet expands right at about peak heating on Thursday. Just perfectly timed relative to that diurnal cycle as well. So I'm going to be continuing these live updates as we lead up. I am going to be activating Storm Chase mode. I'm also going to be doing preparations on the Dominator 4 leading up to this event, reapplying some flex tape on the bumper and on the roof to make sure that it's waterproofed. Of course, I'm also going to get my oil changed as well. So thank you for tuning into this morning weather report. Never stop chasing.